Greetings, race fans, and welcome to RaceSpotTV's presentation of the Radical Esports Cup. J.R. Gregory here with you on the call, sitting in for Ewan O'Leary. Beside me in the commentary booth, my partner, Racing Ron Mons, and our producer today, Ramiro Agustin Cisneros. And folks, 2025 Season 3 is here, and we will begin the festivities in Austria at the Red Bull Ring. Located in Spielberg in the Styrian Mountains of Austria, racing began here way back in 1969 at the old Österreichring, longtime site of the F1 Austrian Grand Prix. The current facility opened in 2011 after several years of dormancy, and of course, current host to Formula One, a ton of motorcycle racing as well. Today's configuration, 4.3 clicks, 2.7 miles, 10 turns. Carlos Sainz has the current fast lap out here of 105.619 in the McLaren that was set back in 2020. So Ron, Red Bull Ring is one of 9 past or present Formula One circuits on this 12-week schedule. I think the schedule looks great. What are your thoughts?
Oh, this schedule looks absolutely phenomenal here for season number 3 of 2025 here from the Esports Cup. Kicking it off with a Red Bull Ring, heading to tracks like Watkins Glen, Alschersleben, some tracks that we have seen in the past. Spa, always a classic here with these SR10s. Thruxton, we were talking about right before the start of this show. That's going to be a bit of an oddity for week 5. The Nürburgring was a host of round number 1 last season. I have a feeling it's going to be a good one to round off the first half of this season. Zolder, that's a track we've seen occasionally. Don't see it too much, but that's still a pretty fun track as well. Suzuka, that's going to be some fun. Fuji, that'll be some fun the week after as well. Sebring is a track that I have personal experience running in a top split race in these Radical cars, so really looking forward to week 10. And then Interlagos, which always puts on some good racing, and the Hockenheim Ring, which I think is going to be another oddball, but I'm still looking forward to all the tracks we've got this season.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll tell you, I really like seeing these F1 courses on the Radical schedule. The Radicals perform fantastic out here. They're really good at those medium to high speed corners, tons of grip, tons of aero, and it really kind of curiously turns this SR10 into a momentum car, and we'll talk about that a little bit more going forward. But it requires a high level of precision to get your best lap time out of these SR10s at a fast track like this, in particular turn 1 here at the Red Bull Ring. You've got to be very, very careful not to overslow there, and you kind of thread the needle up the hill and avoid that anti-cut curb, and the final corner leading on to the back straight as well. Got to take a lot of precision to get those tenths to be at the pointy end of this field.
And are on a track like this as well, which is kind of my personal yardstick, so to speak, in terms of my iRacing driving abilities and how well I can master this SR10, which, believe me, folks, I've been covering this now. This is my 11th season covering these SR10s here on iRacing, and I still find these cars to be a bit tricky to try and master. That's what separates the good drivers from the great, and you see a lot of great drivers here in this session. Looking at the 2 that we've got on screen right now, Rafael Blanco at the top of your screen in the number 1 car, and Havard Gullikson right on bottom in P2. Those 2 are your reigning champion and former reigning champion, and the man we have on screen right now just slotted himself up to P2 in this qualifying session, James Berry. He was a champion before those 2, so we have got a star-studded grid to get this season up and rolling. We split twice, and those 2 splits were pretty big, so really looking forward to what sort of action we can have. Last season, the first one here on RaceSpot RaceSpotTV and the iRacing Esports Network was absolutely fantastic. These top split races truly never disappoint, and looking forward to seeing what Season 3 has to offer. We got a good schedule and a really good allotment of drivers as well, ones that you see week in and week out here in the Esports Cup contending for this official series championship. And you've also got some drivers thrown into the midst there as well that you see in the Radical European Sim Racing and Radical America's Sim Racing Championships. So really star-studded grid, and really tough task that they've got on their hands running here at the Red Bull Ring.
Yeah, too right, Ron. And as qualifying winds down here, I would like to remind our audience that this is not a private or a league event. We are broadcasting the iRacing officials here at 2100 GMT as we do every Friday. So if you'd like to give these radicals a whirl, practice up, show up, and sign up. And if you make the top split, you can appear both here on RaceSpotTV and on the official iRacing YouTube channel alongside some of the best radical drivers in the world. As Ron was saying, looking up and down this grid, there are a number of past champions of the public server seasons here, as well as past champions of the Radical Sim Racing World Championship League, both the European and the US version, or the North American version of that. So really some fantastic driving here. These drivers are well familiar with one another. They spend a lot of time on the track together, and the result of that is some hard but respectful racing.
Yeah, some of the just absolutely most insane battles have come from this Esports Cup. You see these drivers go 3 wide at many absurd places. These SR10s, probably the strongest drafters on the iRacing platform as far as I'm concerned. And because of that, because you've got cars that basically act like there's a vacuum cleaner on the back of them sucking these cars together, you just see some fantastic racing week in and week out. That's part of the reason why I highlighted Spa when I was going over the schedule. That track, I mean, JR, you can attest to this because we have covered these SR10s for quite some time here on iRacing. Those Spa races can be hectic, and this race as well is going to be hectic because we do have those long flat out blasts that are going to keep this field tight and close together, and you've also got those very heavy braking zones, which are going to be quite good when it comes to the overtaking department.
And my goodness, look at that timing tower. What a competitive field out here today, Ron. The top 16 cars from Lip all the way down to just Drumbachen, separated by less than 1 second. And as Ron pointed out, folks, the slipstream pretty powerful on these cars. There's a nice long straightaway here, and actually a couple spots on this track where the slipstream is going to play a role. So that tends to suck these cars together and make for some outstanding races. So let's go through that starting grid for you right now. Up front, it is Sebastian Lip on the pole with a smoking 125.8 next to James Barry in P2. It'll be Gullickson next to Gordon Hauge in 3 and 4. Rafael Blanco, last season's champion, next to Denis Kyriakopoulos in 5 and 6. And it'll be Pellicero next to David Jordan in 7 and 8. That's a couple new names to me. Handke next to Paki Caruso. Kjetil Larson next to Luke Crowley in row 6. Jarrett Junkovic next to Nick Von Roberts in 13 and 14. Telemadri next to Matsuka Strumbachen in 15 and 16. Ole Gullickson next to Andreas Friedrich in 17 and 18. And in the back, Ilya Flugi, another new name to me, in P19. So as we prepare to take the green flag here, waiting for the timer to tick down and for the grid to fill. That is Sebastian Lip there on the right-hand side of your screen. So this is one of these tracks. He is a nose ahead there in pole position, but we'll have the outside entry into that very difficult turn 1. And remember, folks, no traction control, no ABS, no electronic nannies of any kind on these cars, weighing in at 1,000 pounds less than an MX-5 Cup car, 450 horsepower. So job 1, get these cars off the line clean, and we're going to see that unfold here momentarily as the start timer ticks down and we wait for season 3, event 1 to get underway.
And waiting to see how these drivers tackle that run down into turn number 1. That is the bottleneck to end all bottlenecks. Every single year that Formula One runs around here usually ends in tears down to that section. Let's see if these drivers will have a bit more luck to kick this season off.
Yeah, and we'll be keeping an eye, speaking of Formula One, on track limits as well. It's a struggle for these guys just as it is for the pros, and we are green, and it's going to be lip from Barry. From Gullickson is peeking around the outside of turn 1, and Gullickson is going to move up 2 positions from his qualifying. What a start by Gullickson as he tries the outside in turn 1 on cold tires. Holy cow.
Yeah, that was a fantastic start for your champion from season 1 of 2025 here from the Radical Esports Cup. Gullickson looking to make some hay already in this race as some drivers head their way off the track down into turn number 3. One of the heaviest braking zones and one of the premier overtaking opportunities of this race course. And it looks like drivers going to try and utilize it side-by-side racing with Rafael Blanco and James Berry. James Berry, a 4-time champion from past seasons here in the Esports Cup. He had a bit of a troubled time last season, and he's looking to rebound.
Yeah, and man, that is some fantastic action between James Berry and Rafa Blanco side by side there. And oh, there's somebody off. I see a cloud of dust. Somebody sliding into the kitty litter. That's Gordon Housh had an incident there, and a couple other cars kind of dropping. There could have been multiple incidents back there. But what I was going to say, Ron, they are rolling the dice on these ice cold tires. These cars are fairly light, and although they do have plenty of power, it does take a lap or two to get the tires up into the sweet spot in terms of grip. So Blanco and Barry dicing there, really rolling the dice. And here's a replay of House's little incident. Just a little smooch there on the car ahead was enough to turn that Radical at the limit on those cold tires, sending House into the kitty litter. And meanwhile, up front, it is Gullickson from Lip, from Barry, from Blanco, from Pellicero, and it being your top 5. Gullickson really would love to stretch that gap back to Sebastian Lip. Right now, it's only 2/10, and his goal on this and every lap is to try to stretch that gap so he's not vulnerable to the slipstream when we get back on that long straight here at the Red Bull Ring.
As we see the chaos ensue around this racetrack with these drivers going side by side and 3 wide practically everywhere, battling tooth and nail and trying to gain any single spot that they can in the early stages of the 17-lap long race. Looking at those drivers side by side as they head their way down into turn number 4 and nearly end in tears. I thought we're going to see a driver get bonked off into the gravel. May have happened a little bit farther in the back, not entirely sure. Some drivers dropping down like a rock thrown into a pond. But as we take a look at these drivers head their way up through the mid-sector, I want to briefly go back to that moment that we saw with Gordon Housh. Now, this is a fixed setup series here, folks, that any of you new to the Esports Cup, these drivers are all running the same setup, but one of the big things you can change is brake bias as we look at side-by-side racing with Dennis Kyriakopoulos and Paki Caruso. Contact being made with Pellicero and Caruso down right towards the end of the lap. That'll allow Pellicero. Oh, no, he gets spun.
Holy cow, and I'm a little surprised by that. See a couple cars going evasive at the end, and you saw Blanco or Caruso there pushing hard to try to get around Kyriakopoulos, got a little bit loose there, and that allowed his competitor to get through, and it ended up with a spin. Unfortunate there, and we'll get another look. That's Pellicero, and you see him get past Caruso, and Caruso is going to turn him there coming onto the front straight, and no live stewarding here, folks, but if there were, they would certainly be taking a look at that. Caruso maybe should have left a little bit room right there, Ron.
Yeah, especially right towards the start of this race. Now, bearing in mind, folks, this is just the top split broadcast that we do. They have been racing throughout the entirety of this week, so this isn't the first race of this season for these drivers, but it's the first of these broadcasted ones. And to do that sort of move right towards the start of this race, it's a little bit iffy as far as I'm concerned. But hey, very good reason why I'm behind the microphone instead behind the wheels. We take a look at a moment involving Luke Crowley. That was heading his way through the mid-sector of this racetrack. Quick little spin, very similar to that Gordon Housh moment. I was going to raise this in the early stages. Very easy to spin out through some of the medium to high speed corners around this racetrack. Tire temps, obviously so crucial right at the beginning of these races with those standing starts and tires that more resemble rubber icicles than anything else. When you go on to the brakes, these cars tend to have a bit more brake bias towards the front, and so as a result of that, you're going to have some very hot front tires, while the rear ones are going to take a little bit more time to try and warm up, and it's very easy to spin up the rears and spin yourself around coming out of some of these turns. So probably a best idea just to wait for those rears to get up to temperature instead of just goosing the throttle and spinning up those rears to get them up to temp. So real tricky in the early stages of this race to keep the back end of the car kind of playing well with you. If you can do that, you're going to be golden. If not, you're going to go into a corner backwards.
Yeah, too right, Ron. And a little battle there of Alexis Jordan. It looks like he is fighting it out with Caruso there, who had some problems earlier. And up front, look at that train that is formed. Lip from Gullickson, from Barry, from Blanco. That is 3 of the past 3 champions in a row, actually, in Gullickson, Barry, and Blanco. As a little train beginning to form up there, and they have dropped Kyriakopoulos to the tune of about 3 seconds. So there is going to be the fight for the podium for the remainder of this one. Lap 4 of 17, plenty of time left, but when these trains start to form, that aerodynamic advantage they get from the toe kind of causes them to pull ahead. And it is still, as we begin lap 5, again, Lip from Gullickson, from Barry, from Blanco. And yeah, Ron, very good point about the front tires. Tire management is a thing on these cars, even though these races are pretty short. It's a temptation to ride the understeer through some of these sweeping corners, particularly at the Red Bull Ring. But the front tires will not last the entire race if you lean on them too hard. And here's Gullickson taking a peek inside of turn 3 right there. Can't quite get it done, but he shows his nose to Sebastian Lip to remind him that he is back there. And yeah, that is turn 3, Ron. There's just a tiny little kink between 1 and 3 on that long back straightaway, and they count that as a corner. And here's some more action. That is Barry inside of Gullickson, and Barry is getting that done. Barry moves up into P2.
Barry burying it down the inside into the turn, gets that move done to jump his way up into P2 and join his teammate Sebastian Lip, your race leader still, as we take a look at Nikos Handkut involved in a huge hornet's nest of race cars. He's side by side heading his way off through the mid sector of this racetrack. That's Nicholas Ledecky right behind the number 14 car, trying to find any way in the book to move his way up into P8. Got Kettle Larson, series veteran, right behind, who's right in front of his teammate of Mats Gestrombakken. Nice to see some of those teammates' cars. You can see Gullickson, Larson, Gestrombakken. They've been rather consistent forces here, and rather consistent presences as well here in the Esports Cup, and looking forward to seeing what they can do here for Season 3, as it is still Sebastian Lip in the race lead. He's got his teammate, the rear gunner, James Barry, right behind, but I don't think team orders are going to play any sort of role in that. Those two very successful drivers in the SR10. I mean, hey, James Barry won 3 straight championships here in the officials a couple of years back. So Barry, very good driver in this series. I say a couple of years back, it was dating right towards the end of 2024. So what am I saying? But James Barry, very good driver, had a disappointing season last season, which was coupled with a rather disappointing one the season before that. So I think James Barry in P2, he's not going to settle for second. As calm and cool and collected of a customer as he usually is, I think he wants to start this season off with a bang and hopefully not run into a wall.
Yeah, Barry putting in the effort this season. He took a little bit of a breather last season. We saw him a few times, but he was not running up toward the front as we were accustomed to, because he was kind of giving himself a break from the kind of preparation it takes to run at the front of these fields. These are 7-8K plus drivers, all up at least the first top 4 or 5. So very serious competition out here. Oof, and here's Flugie, and he's going to flug one right into the outside there, coming off of that slow turn 3, and that's what Ron was mentioning. You have to be very, very patient on the throttle, and there's no corner in which that is more serious than that very difficult uphill turn 3, and that's where Flugie went off on the outside.
You know, after my James Barry burying it down the inside into turn number 4 pun a couple of laps ago, I can't say that I'm upset with that pun that he had there. Unfortunate, though, for Flugie. Very easy to have a moment like that happen coming out of turn number 1 here at the Red Bull Ring, regardless of what kind of car you're in. You know, the first time I watched, like, the entirety of a Formula 1 Austrian Grand Prix weekend was back in 2016, and that was the year where the sausage curbs, I like to refer to them as the overcooked sausage curbs because much like an overcooked sausage, you can chip your teeth on both. I remember that race weekend and the abundant amount of suspension failures that everyone up and down the F1 grid was having. You won't have that happen here in the sim, but instead what's going to happen is you're going to lose that front splitter's closeness to the ground, and in the process of that, you're probably going to spin off the track. The one plus side of that is going backwards into the wall. You will not see the wall that damages your car and takes you out of the race.
Yeah, too right. These radicals are sensitive to ride height, and that splitter coming up will break the aerodynamic seal and cause them to snap. We see that over and over again. And that train up front is still Lip from Barry, from Gullickson, from Blanco. And if I know these guys, which I do after covering them for a couple of years, Gullickson is going to take a breath here and bide his time. We're only on lap 8 of 17, and he's actually in a pretty good spot right now. I don't think you want to be in the very front coming into the race, and here comes a move. James Barry is going to stick it down the inside and gets P1 away from his teammate, at least temporarily, on that difficult uphill turn 3. But Lip is going to take a look right back at him coming down the hill. Another very difficult spot, little decreasing radius right down here. We tend to see some incidents here. It's hard to get on the brakes, trail brake around this. It's easy to over rotate right there. And Lip is nose and nose with James Barry, and they're still side by side, Ron. No team orders is right. They are fighting it out for first.
Yeah, and two very good drivers in these SR10s, but Barry, he has something to prove as he gets that move done, maybe, potentially, nearly. Sebastian Lip's still going to draw alongside. They're going to be side-by-side, hang off into the second's last corner. One of them has to back out, but I have a feeling that neither of them will. That's going to be Barry deciding, nope, you know what, I want this win, but I want to be there at the end a little bit more. P2 gives a heck of a lot more points than P20, so he backs out of it. Side-by-side racing, heading off through the final turns around this racetrack. You are asking for trouble. But right now in that, James Barry, he's now going to start to feel some pressure from Havard Gullickson. It's got some pressure from Rafael Blanco right behind. We have got 4 star-studded drivers running P1, P2, P3, and P4 into this race. About halfway through it at the present moment, tick over that, in fact, as these racers look to go side-by-side down to 3 with Barry down the inside.
And we're going to get another lap like the last one, and that was some great driving by those two teammates up front, Lip and Barry. They were side by side, Ron, from turn 4 all the way through turn 9, and that takes an epic amount of car control and a substantial amount of trust as well. And Lip just didn't give up. He's doing the same thing here, and if you want to drive beside me, fine, I'm going to slow you down, but I'm not going to let you go. And that gave Lip the critical inside path through turn 10, and that's how he cross start finish on that lap in P1. And this time they're getting a little more nose to tail a little sooner, but up front again, Lip from Barry, from Gullickson, from Blanco. They've dropped Kiriakopoulos now 4 seconds back, and this is where the action is up front, and this is what's going to decide the podium finishers, maybe. And I may be getting a little bit ahead of myself, and it may turn out that Kiriakopoulos is in the catbird seat if these guys up front come to blows. He'll be waiting to pick up the pieces and maybe snag that last podium position.
And you know, JR, we have had so much experience covering Denny Kiriakopoulos here in the Radical Esports Cup, and he's a driver that will never be the flashiest one. He's not going to be going for those insane dive bombs down into the turn. He's just going to be getting those moves done, running his own race, and just keeping calm, cool, and collected. These drivers at the front of the field, though, they're doing anything but. James Barry going to jump his way up into the race lead for now, as Sebastian Lip has a good run on him coming out of turn number 3. Down this stretch, down the hill and back up the hill, then back down the hill, careening her way into turn number 4, another heavy braking zone. Who's going to win out in that battle of the last late breakers? It looks like Lip is still holding on to the inside line, and maybe a bit of a curve back on the inside, sending him into the side of James Barry. They're still side by side yet again into turn number 6. It's power horse turn. It's a powerhouse move if Barry can get it done. He clears his teammate, who goes a bit into the gravel coming out turn 6.
Holy cow, folks. And if this is your first time seeing this Radical Esports Cup, you know why that you should tune in every Friday, 2100 GMT here on RaceSpot and on the official iRacing channel. This is the kind of racing we see week in and week out. And with all these Formula One tracks on the schedule, this is going to be a season for the ages as we complete lap 10, finish, about to start lap 11 here. And Barry is going to have the lead this time. And you got to think, Ron, that Gullickson is loving what he's seeing right now as Barry and Lip fighting each other, stressing their tires, putting wear and heat into those tires. And Gullickson is going to bide his time. And you know that at some point he's going to pounce on whichever one of those teammates is in P2 in front of him.
And once we start to see the likes of Gullickson and Rafa Blanco get involved in this battle, that is going to be, for lack of a better term, when all hell starts to break loose. These drivers, very skilled, very talented. They're venerated in this series as well. They know each other, though. They know the pros and cons. They know the drivers around them, strengths and weaknesses. We're going to start to see them capitalize on it. I won't be too shocked at all if we start to see that headlight blinking game go up. And I mean, JR, the amount of times that we've seen these drivers blink their headlights at each other, they're not lapped cars, they're just blinking at them for the sake of blinking at them. We're probably going to see that between now and the end of this race. Mind games are so important when it comes to the world of racing. I've got my own story to share when it comes to this as well. I remember right towards the end of one of my final years in karts back in 2021, I walked up to my main competitor, who's been a buddy of mine for many, many moons, and right before we got into the karts, I grabbed him by the shoulders from his back and just shook him. I just shook him. Didn't do anything else. I just shook him. And I got closer to beating him at that event than I'd done throughout the entirety of the season. And bearing in mind, folks, he had a kart that was probably about 8 horsepower quicker than mine, which in karts, that is a big difference when it comes to shifter kart racing. Mind games are huge, and these drivers are going to start to play them as Lip and Barry. They're playing the side-by-side game yet again.
My goodness, Lip and Barry side by side on that long straight between turn 1 and turn 3, and that battle raging on. And look at that battle for 6 underneath. That is Crusoe from Hankey, from Liddicky, from Kjetil Larsen, one of our frequent flyers here, a couple actually, if you count Caruso. And those drivers have been going side by side and switching positions just as much as they have been up front. And Ron, you called it, Sebastian Lip starting to flash his headlights. And if you want a good laugh, folks, go ahead and Google Jordan Taylor headlight flash. He put together a pretty funny little video on Facebook that will definitely have you crying if you take the time to look that up. But up front, lap 12 of 7 right now, it is Barry from Lip, from Gullickson, from Blanco. Kiriakopoulos about 4 seconds back in no man's land with a 2-second gap to the next train, which is Crusoe from Ledke, from Hankey, from Larson. And that is what we are looking at on your screen right now, the focus on Hankey. And those cars have swapped positions nonstop for the last couple of laps. So plenty of action up and down this grid. One of the great things about these Radical Esports Cup races, they fight for every position, whether it's P1 or P10, and fight hard and fight clean.
Yeah, and as we've been paying attention to that pack at the front of the field, this battle right behind involving Caruso, Ledecky, Hendke, and Larson, that has still been a very good battle to keep our eyes on. These drivers, I will say, and this is honest, this is a series where our producer, Mr. Ramiro Agustin Cisneros, this is where he makes his money, because covering these races, you gotta be a chameleon, looking at about 16 different things at once, seeing a battle just barely inside the top 10, a battle for the race win, and a battle for P3 with 2 drivers who were close to battling for the lead, losing a bit of time. You can see that gap between Sebastian Lip and Havard Gullickson has ballooned out to around 0.7 of a second. It was a second not terribly long ago, and I was thinking that was probably going to balloon out even more with Rafa Blanco and Gullickson battling tooth and nails. They had their way off through turn number 4. But as we start to see this race draw to a conclusion, coming to lap 14 this time by of only 17 laps in this official race here from the Radical Esports Cup week number 1 at the Red Bull Ring, I wonder if Havard Gullickson and Rafa Blanco are going to battle to the point where it's just going to be an inert battle between James Barry and Sebastian Lip for the first race win of the season.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way, and I'm also sensing, Ron, that Blanco is starting to get a little impatient with Gullickson. Barry and Lip have stopped fighting for the time being and are starting to gap Gullickson. That gap, as you pointed out, climbing close to a second here, and I think Blanco probably feels that if he'd have a better crack at Lip than Gullickson, wants to get through there. Saw him flashing his lights a little bit earlier, and at the bottom of our screen, that little train from P6 down to P9 is still nonstop action, and it's Caruso now from Handke, from Ludke, from Larson, and you see Matska Strumbakken sniffing around there in the back, and oh, there may have been an incident. I see Dunkovich and a couple other cars dropping down the timing tower there. Something has happened in the mid-pack. May have been car-to-car contact. We had a couple of cars really dropping down the standings. We'll see if we can find out what happened there. But on camera now, again, it's Caruso from Handke, from Ludke, from Larson in the battle for P6. And you just caught a glimpse of Denis Kyriakopoulos kind of enjoying a track day here solo. Although it looks like, yeah, he's got about 4 seconds ahead to Blanco and about 3 seconds back to Caruso. So Kyriakopoulos kind of on an island there in P5.
Yeah, he is the loneliest man on this racetrack at the present moment. As we take a look at some drama, things have gone from bad to worse for Gordon Haug, and I think he may have been at the epicenter of that Dunkovich drama with some other cars involved in that, I think including Andreas Friedrich. And you can see that coming out of and that was, oh my lord, that was a big one. I think that was probably about 5 or 6 cars involved in that. I was thinking, okay, it's gonna be 3, then it's gonna be 4, then it's gonna be 5. Okay, the entire pack crashed into each other. It is a narrow racetrack, this. The Red Bull Ring, despite the fact that it is the far safer incarnation of the old Oostenrijk Ring from back in the 80s, it is still not a modern track in the sense that you've gotten just vast, massive runoff areas. You got some of them on the turns, but on the straightaways, don't really have anything of the sorts, and that's part of the reason why we saw all those drivers have that big stack up coming at turn number 3 a couple of moments ago.
Yeah, and there really wasn't any place to go, and I think that started with Dunkovich being a little impatient on the throttle, coming up that hill through that difficult turn 3, loops it, and you know, that yellow flag does not mean floor it and take advantage of the incident, but some people can't fight off the red mist, and that may have played a role there too. And look at Ludke and Caruso is not shy. He is no stranger to swapping paint, and we see Caruso weaving over, trying to break the draft, and Ludke may try him on the outside up here, and that is Kittel, Larson, and Handke watching all this from behind. Oh my goodness, and a wide run there through that turn 1. You can get a slowdown out there, so we'll keep an eye and see if somebody drew a penalty. But Caruso with Ludke and Larson behind him there, and back in the back is Handke kind of observing, and both sets of cars side by side, and Caruso is turned. Oh my goodness, there have been some rough driving, Ron, in that portion of the grid, and again, it's outside my pay grade to be race steward here. I'm just calling the race, but a little dubious pit maneuver there on that one.
Honestly, the way I see it, side-by-side racing coming at turn number 3 usually ends that way, just because you bottleneck from going probably about 4 lanes wide to really about 2. That hairpin, it's a good spot to try and get a move done, but you need to get it done pretty much as soon as you possibly can. Get it done on the brakes. Don't get it done coming out of that turn, because even in these cars, going to have some side-to-side contact and end in tears. But as that drama's been going on a little bit farther in the back, these drivers battling for the race win, they're on the white flag. One more lap of racing action here at the Red Bull Ring. James Berry is in front of Sebastian Lip, but Gullickson and Blanco, they're right there within striking distance as well. This is a 4-car battle for the win here at the Red Bull Ring, and they have less than a lap to sort it out now.
Yeah, Barry going defensive here. He's going to try to cover the inside to turn 3. Lip is taking a peek there. Barry has to take the long way around there now, side by side, heading down the hill into turn 4. And no, Lip, Barry gets a better drive out of that corner. Lip has to tuck down inside. Barry once again here will cover the inside of this difficult downhill corner and force Lip to take the long way around. And man, I remember this race last time we covered this track together. There was massive action right here, and we're seeing it happen again. It is Barry side by side with Lip going through this difficult section. A little kiss of kitty litter, and time running out for Lip. He will have one more opportunity. That turn 10 coming onto the front straight, but running out of time quickly. Look at that gap dropping as they head down into turn number 9. They'll be side by side. Lip has a bit of an edge here. Can he do something? Will Barry be able to stick it inside of turn 10? And oh my goodness, Lip makes it happen around the outside, turn 9 and 10, and that is a photo finish. But Sebastian Lip, what car control, hanging on to the outside. Barry bumping, grinding, and banging, and it was not enough to keep his teammate off of the top step of the podium. And man, oh man, what a finish.
And what a move from Sebastian Lip to get the first win of this season here for season 3 of 2025, I should say, from the Radical Esports Cup. That move was so insane, I can't even speak English anymore. That was insanity as they headed their way off through the final few turns. I said earlier on that side-by-side racing heading through there ends in two ways. It either ends bad or it ends even worse than that. Instead, Sebastian Lip just swept around the outside of his teammate and was able to grab the win. That was textbook stuff from Sebastian Lip. James Barry, credit where credit is due to him, still finishes on that podium, and credit where credit is also due to Havard Gulix. And I think if that race went on for another lap, that win may have been his. If that start-finish line was about 50 feet farther back, it probably would have been P2 for him, but instead, Sebastian Lip gonna be the standout star. Holy cow.
Yeah, and look at that gap between Barry and Gullickson. As I predicted, Gullickson was kind of lingering in the background, waiting to attack whoever was in P2 when he thought he had a chance. He almost had a chance there at the very end. Barry just beating him out of P2 by 0.05 of a second. And folks, this is what the Radical Esports Cup is going to be like for 12 races this season. You do not want to miss it here on RaceSpot or on the official iRacing channel. But whew, let me take a cleansing breath, and we're going to run through the results for you. Sebastian Lip with the hard-earned victory of an awesome race. James Barry will be in P2. Havard Gullickson rounding out your podium. Then it's last season's champion, Rafael Blanco, who was there throughout the entire race, but never could get past Gullickson, never really had a crack at the pointy end of the grid. Then Denis Kyriakopoulos kind of enjoying a track day there on the island in P5, never had any pressure from behind, never really got close to Blanco. And then that quintet of Ludke, Handke, Larson, and Gstrumbach in there, 6 through 9. We saw them put on a hell of a show here this afternoon as well. And rounding out the top 10, David Alexis Jordan and Raul Penacero came across in P12. Then Tim Aladri in 12, Paki Caruso in P13, and we saw him collect paint from a couple of cars there, and I'm not sure how he's going to be feeling after this race today. A lot of contact involving Caruso. Then Ole Gullickson in P14. Luke Crowley is another person who spent some time off in the kitty litter in P15. Then Vaughn Roberts in 16. Jarrett Dunkovich, you saw him get turned and speared and get the flatbed back to the pits. He ended up in P17 after putting in a pretty good drive up to that point. Gordon Houge as well was the projectile that sent Dunkovich into the pits. He ends up in P18. Then Andreas Friedrich, he was part of that kerfuffle in turn 3 as well. Cloud of smoke and radical body parts flying everywhere. And P20 is Flugie, probably Flugie, and that will round out your results out of that 20-car grid. And oh my goodness, Ron, I was really looking forward to seeing these cars out here on Red Bull Ring. I am stoked about this schedule at these fast tracks. They really showed the best of these radicals, and we saw a great example of that today.
Oh, that we absolutely did. As much as this track can put on some good racing, and these cars can put on some good racing at whatever racetrack you put them on, those drivers brought the thunder and brought the action to life. And JR, I think we have the opportunity to have a chat with some of these drivers as well. So I'm going to pass the buck off to you so you can have a chat with one of the racers who's involved in that battle. It's just the insane pack that we had at the front of the field throughout this race. So I'll pass it off to you and ask who you want to have a chat with first.
Well, I've got to start with James Berry, who came in P2 after an epic battle with his teammate Sebastian Lipp for the entirety of this one. And James, the last time we had a race here at Red Bull Ring, you were involved in some wild side-by-side action through turn 6 and 7. I think the last time we saw you out here, you actually ended up getting passed for the lead in turn 6 in a very dramatic moment, and it was nonstop action out there for you today. So how would you describe today's race here at the Red Bull Ring?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me of the record. Now that I've done that twice in a row, lost the lead on the last lap. I'd forgotten about that. I was just thinking, well, I don't mind losing the win because it was a good race and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, I guess to lose the win twice in a row is a little bit awkward. But whatever. At least it was to someone different this time. No, we were cooperating. Me and Sebastian are not actually on the comms. I don't know. I've never actually spoken to him in comms. So we're just using our body language to try and inform each other of what we're doing. And we got a gap at some point, so we stopped battling. But then I made a mistake, so they caught back up. And then, yeah, we just had to battle at the end. And I obviously I don't want to have a crash, so I left him all the space that I needed to on those last couple of turns. And maybe it was a bit too nice because, yeah, let him go clean around the outside. But a great move from him, I have to say.
Well, it was an epic move by him, and I'm sure that you were aware at the time that Havard Gullikson was sniffing around behind the pair of you, and he got a little bit of overlap with you coming across the finish line, and if the finish line was a few hundred meters further down the track, he might have squeaked you out of P2. But man, oh man, what a fantastic race. And James, I know that you kind of took a little bit of a breather last season and gave yourself a break in terms of preparation for these races, and it seems like you are right back in the saddle. So looking forward at this schedule, how are you feeling about this upcoming season? There's some very fast drivers out here, very stiff competition, but as usual, you're right at the front. So are you going to be pushing yourself to vie for the championship this season?
Yeah, to be honest, absolutely. I'm here to try and win the championship again because it's been a few seasons now since the last time I did it. And I don't think I can leave my name too far back in history books. So yeah, we're going to try and do that. Also going full attack now in the European Championship as well. After I won the last race, I want to see what I can do in those races. So yeah, for me, for sure, going to give it everything this season.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a good time to mention, folks, if you enjoyed seeing these radicals battle here in Austria, you can join us again here on RaceSpotTV on Sunday. And we'll be back for the Radical Sim Racing Championship, European Championship. That's what James was referring to. 1 hour of fighting out here on the Red Bull Ring with a couple of mandatory pit stops and some very, very worn tires by the end of that. So if you enjoyed this, be sure and join us for that on Sunday. And James, as we wrap up, is there anyone you would like to thank or give a shout out to today?
Just thank Sebastian for that race because I don't think we've battled too many times, and his teammates, you always want to be careful. But yeah, a super clean battling. We were not giving each other an inch at some points, but we still kept it super clean. So yeah, I think we did a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks to you both for putting on an amazing show. It was really great to watch and fun to call, and can't wait for the next one. So, all right, well, that is your P2 competitor, James Berry. And you heard it, folks. He has thrown down the gauntlet. He is going to press for that championship today. And we've seen him perform. He's probably 3 consecutive championships run a couple seasons back. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. So Barry is definitely knows how to wheel these radicals, and it will be a great season watching him try to get back up to the top.
Yeah, and looking at some of the championships that he's gotten in the past year, it's season 4 of 2023, and then he won 3 straight, as you said, JR, from season 2 of 2024 all the way through to season 4 of 2024. So very good driver when it comes to these SR10s, and I know the kind of competitor that James Berry is. He's going to look to try and return it back to championship form, and I think based off this result, he has a fantastic shot to try and get it done. But we also have Havard Gullikson there in the interview waiting area. If you don't mind, JR, I think I'll drag him into the booth to have a quick little chat with Havard at the end of this race. Havard, welcome into the commentary booth, my friend, and well done on the podium result here at the Red Bull Ring. How about you talk us through the opening race of this season?
Thank you. Not so much to say. I had a good start. Took the lead, but in this track it's very drafty and impossible to drive off. But yeah, I'm happy. I didn't talk to Sebastian, but I was going to say sorry to him. I hit him in turn 3 on lap 12, I think. But racing incident, and I think he's not in a bad mood.
Yeah, I think after that move around the outside that he did, heading through the final few turns, I think he's still trying to figure out exactly what happened in this race. So we'll call that a good luck tap that happened in the earlier stages of this race.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I want to ask you, Havard, because you were the champion for season number 1 of 2025. Lost out to Rafa Blanco last season, but you were still one of the top drivers here in the Esports Cup. We've got a really challenging schedule to look forward to here for this season, but very versatile driver, very good driver. We've been able to see that from you throughout this these broadcasts and last season, most certainly. So I want to ask you about your thoughts heading off here for season 3 of 2025.
Yeah, thank you. This season I will not race all the races, I think, because it's summer and I have a lot of other hobbies that I have to prioritize. So, but I will try to be racing all the races I can.
I mean, always nice to see you out there on the racetrack regardless, but I mean, hey, if it's good to have those summer hobbies, trust me. I used to have hobbies, then I got into this commentary stuff, and now basically all I do is scream into a microphone and pixels on the screen. But it's still nice to see you out there on the racetrack, and part of the European Radical Series here as well, gonna be running at this exact same racetrack this upcoming weekend. So you want to give us a preview for that race?
Yeah, it will be a really close race, I think, like this one. The competition is very good. The quali is very important, I think, because it's so easy to get off track. This is the off track track of all tracks, I think. So yeah, you have to keep it inside the lanes and try to go fast and consistent. And I'm very bad at saving tires and saving fuel, but I will try to do my best.
And man, when I think of track limits, I get bad flashbacks to the Australian Grand Prix a couple of years ago when they issued out like 90 seconds worth of penalties an hour and a half after the race was said and done. Don't think we'll see that this upcoming weekend. Instead, we'll see some great racing action, and probably gonna see you at the epicenter of all of it there, Havard. So we'll let you go here from the commentary booth, but firstly, are there any thanks or shouts out you want to give before we let you go?
Yeah, thank you guys for always putting on this good show. I always watch the broadcast afterwards and enjoy it a lot, so thank you. And of course to all my teammates in the RGL and Sanne Trafikkskole.
Well, thank you as well for joining us here in the commentary booth, Havard. Well done on the P3 here at the Red Bull Ring, and excited to see you on track throughout the rest of the season, man. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. See you later.
All right, so that was James Berry from P2 and Havard Gullikson from P3. And again, that is just kind of the quality of the fighting that we're going to see on track for 12 weeks. So I encourage you to subscribe to RaceSpot and hit that notification icon so that you don't miss any of the action. And speaking of action, how about we cross the Atlantic next Friday, 2100 GMT, and have another epic battle at Watkins Glen. We've been at the Glen a couple times the last couple seasons in these SR10s, and the racing has been fantastic. So you will definitely want to check that out. And also, like we said, Sunday afternoon, we'll be back at the Red Bull Ring for the Radical European Championship. Woo, my goodness. Well, Ron, that was completely epic. And folks, thank you so much for joining us for today's broadcast of the opening round of 2025 Season 3 of the Radical Esports Cup. I am JR Gregory. On behalf of myself, my partner, Racing Ron Mons, and our producer, Ramiro Cisneros, and everyone here at RaceSpotTV, have a great Friday and an even better weekend.